Welcome to Just Johnny and Sophie. We've got, well, a whole lot of ground to cover today with the friend group, but before we even get to Marcus and Lily, I know you had a question you wanted to throw out there.
I do, yeah. And I want to ask you, and honestly, everyone listening right now, have you ever learned a language, like studied it for years, put in all those grueling hours, and then one day realized you just can't remember any of it?
Oh my gosh, the ultimate betrayal.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I absolutely have.
It is maddening. You do the verb conjugations until your eyes cross, a few years go by, you try to speak, and there's just dead air, nothing.
Which is exactly what we are unpacking today, because we are going to look at the surprisingly comforting science of why we forget languages, and hopefully prove to you that nothing is ever truly erased.
Yeah, the science on this is actually really reassuring.
It is, and we're going to filter the actual neurology through the hilarious, deeply relatable real-life experiences of our friends Marcus, Lily, Dan, and Maya.
Oh boy. The crew.
The crew. But before we get into the heavy neuroscience of memory decay, let me ask you a clarifying question. Because when I think about forgetting a language, I picture a computer, right?
Okay, sure.
Is the brain just like running out of hard drive space? Are we actively deleting old vocabulary files to make room for new memories, like trying to free up space on a smartphone so you can download a new app?
It's a tempting analogy for sure, but the brain does not work like a solid-state drive. It doesn't just hit delete to save megabytes.
So what is it doing then?
What the brain actually is ruthlessly efficient. Biologically speaking, it doesn't delete languages you don't use. It just deprioritizes them.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the neural pathways that hold that language simply get archived, basically. They get stored deeper in the brain.
So the language is just buried somewhere.
It is. It totally exists, but it's deliberately hard to access. Let's look at the mechanics of this. We are talking about synaptic pruning and neuroplasticity.
Okay, lay it on me.
So when you learn a language, you are physically building connections, synapses between neurons. If you stop using that language, the brain realizes it's expending valuable metabolic energy, maintaining a pathway that, frankly, isn't helping you survive your current environment.
Right, because you're not speaking it every day.
Exactly. So it starts weakening those connections. It doesn't destroy the neurons themselves, but it scales back the infrastructure.
Okay, that makes complete sense, especially when you think about Marcus.
Oh, man, our favorite unintentional linguist.
Exactly. So for everyone listening, you know Marcus. He took 2 years of French in high school. If you ask him today, he will swear to you up and down that he cannot speak a single sentence.
He literally acts like those 2 years are a complete blank.
A total void. But, okay, 2 weeks ago, we were all in the car driving to get tacos, and this old Stromae song comes on the radio.
I remember this.
Out of nowhere, Marcus starts humming, and then he just translates the bridge of the song perfectly. We all turned around and stared at him.
And he didn't even realize he was doing it. The knowledge was just completely archived.
Completely.
Which, perfectly illustrates a core concept in cognitive psychology known as the savings paradigm.
The savings paradigm.
Yeah, this was first discovered by Hermann Ebbinghaus back in the 19th century. Ebbinghaus proved that even when memory recall drops to essentially zero, like when you consciously think you have forgotten everything, a latent memory trace remains.
So Marcus couldn't just voluntarily summon the French vocabulary if you asked him to?
Right. But the music provided this external sensory trigger. It bypassed his conscious recall and just fired up those dormant neural pathways.
It just bypassed the front desk and went straight to the archive. I love that. And if you want an even more dramatic example of the savings paradigm, we have to talk about Lily.
I was really hoping you'd bring up Lily, the spreadsheet queen.
She's the most methodical person alive.
Yeah.
Lily studied German for 18 months straight. I'm talking color-coded flashcards, spaced repetition apps, grammar workbooks. She was absolutely relentless.
Terrifyingly organized.
Truly. But then she got that massive promotion, her schedule blew up, and she stopped studying completely for over a year.
Yeah, she was so busy.
When she finally had time to breathe again, she was devastated because she thought she was back at square one.
But the data says she wouldn't be.
And the data was right. She didn't have to start from scratch. She sat down, restarted her routine, and she relearned all of that 18-month material in just 3 weeks.
Unbelievable.
3 weeks to recover a year and a half of intense study.
That is the savings paradigm in action on a massive scale.
Yeah.
And neurologically, here's how that works. When Lily first learned German, she didn't just build connections, she myelinated them.
Wait, myelinated. Like the myelin sheaths.
Exactly, yeah. Myelin is a fatty substance that coats the axons of your neurons. It acts like insulation on a copper wire, which basically makes the signal travel faster.
Oh, got it.
So when she stopped practicing, the brain stopped sending signals down those wires, but the physical infrastructure, the insulation was still largely there.
So relearning is infinitely faster than initial learning because you aren't building a new road.
Right. You are just clearing the debris off a highway that has already been paved. So it turns out that old use it or lose it principle is fundamentally flawed. You don't lose it.
You just misplace it. It's like packing away winter clothes in the attic. You didn't throw out your heavy coat the language.
Yeah.
You just put it in a hard-to-reach box because it's summer and you don't need it.
Yeah, exactly.
When it gets cold again, like Lily restarting her German classes, you don't go buy a new coat, you just go up into the attic to get it.
I see the appeal of the attic metaphor, but let me push back on that a little bit because an attic implies the information is just sitting there, perfectly preserved in a box.
Oh, okay, so it's not like that.
It's actually much more organic than that. It's more like a trail you've carved through a dense forest. If you walk it every day, the path is clear. But if you stop walking it for a year, the underbrush grows back. The path is still there, the dirt is packed down underneath, but you have to hack away some weeds to walk it again. That's what Lily was doing for those 3 weeks, hacking away the weeds.
Okay, I like the overgrown trail better. That
Yeah.
makes sense. But that actually brings up a really critical question. If the brain allows unused information to get overgrown, what determines what stays totally clear?
What do you mean?
Like, why do some things stick around forever while other things get swallowed by the forest immediately?
Oh, that. That comes down to 2 highly potent, deeply opposing neurological factors, stress and emotion.
Ooh, okay. Let's look at stress first, because I feel like we've all been in a situation where someone asks us a question in a language we are learning and our brain just flatlines.
Right, and people blame themselves for that, thinking they're just naturally bad at the language. But it's actually a biological hijacking.
A hijack.
Yeah. When you are put on the spot, your body perceives a threat. Your HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, kicks into gear, and your adrenal glands flood your system with cortisol.
And cortisol is the stress hormone. Huh?
Exactly. It's designed to keep you alive in a crisis. When cortisol hits the hippocampus, which is the brain's memory center, it physically disrupts synaptic transmission.
Wait. So the stress hormone is literally blocking the memory.
Physically blocking it. Cortisol reduces the excitability of the neurons in your hippocampus. Your brain is essentially saying, hey, we're under attack. This is not the time to retrieve high-level cognitive data like French verb conjugations. Divert all energy to the muscles.
Oh my God.
So you freeze. It's not that you don't know the word, it's that your panic has physically locked the filing cabinet.
That is wildly unfair. The
Yeah.
exact moment you need the vocabulary to prove you can speak the language, your brain decides you're being chased by a bear and shuts off your access to the vocabulary.
Biology can be very cruel sometimes, but the flip side of that is emotional connection. If stress is a padlock on your memory, positive, high-stakes emotional connection is like super glue.
Which brings us to Maya. Maya is the ultimate case study in emotional superglue.
She really is. For anyone listening who isn't familiar with Maya's deeply dramatic romantic history, she learned Italian specifically for a boyfriend.
She was completely head over heels. She threw herself into the language just to be able to talk to him and argue with him and charm his family.
It was intense.
So intense. Now, that relationship spectacularly crashed and burned years ago. She doesn't live in Italy. She doesn't use the language in her daily life. But if you get a few drinks in her, she remembers perfectly.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it.
Every romantic phrase, the highly specific vocabulary for arguing about household chores, the exact cadence of a native speaker, it is entirely burned into her brain.
And neuroscience tells us exactly why Maya will be able to argue in Italian until the day she dies.
Why is that?
Well, right next to the hippocampus is the amygdala, which is the emotional processing center of the brain. When you experience something with high emotional stakes, like falling passionately in love or having a devastating breakup, the amygdala goes into overdrive.
Okay.
It essentially stamps the adjacent memories being formed in the hippocampus with a chemical tag that says, hey, this is critical for our emotional survival. Do not let the weeds grow over this path.
So because her brain attached the vocabulary to matters of the heart, it just refuses to archive it. It's permanently on the main floor.
Exactly. High emotion dictates high retention.
Now contrast Maya's dramatic Italian romance with Dan, because Dan is the expected outlier in our group.
Oh, damn.
Dan never forgets any language he learns, and he speaks 4 of them. But He isn't constantly falling in love across Europe. He retains everything because he reads international news in all four languages every single morning before 6 a.m.
He's a machine.
It is a grueling daily survival routine.
Dan is fascinating, but let's be honest about what Dan is actually doing. He is relying on brute force. He is actively walking all four of those forest trails every single morning so the underbrush literally can't grow.
Okay, but I have to push back on the Dan example. Yes, Dan is basically a supercomputer with an attention span that defies logic. But is his obsessive four-newspaper reading method really sustainable for the rest of us?
Definitely not.
Right. Or is Maya's method, falling passionately in love with an Italian, the only realistic way to retain a language? Because frankly, I don't have the energy for a torrid European romance, and I definitely don't have the discipline to read Le Monde at dawn.
I don't think anyone does.
There has to be a middle ground.
There is a middle ground, thankfully, and it is rooted in how neuroplasticity actually functions. You do not need the fiery romance, and you absolutely do not need Dan's exhausting morning routine. The biological middle ground is based on a concept called spaced repetition.
Okay, what's that?
It boils down to one simple, scientifically backed rule.
Consistency beats intensity.
Yes, consistency beats intensity every single time.
Break down the science on that for us. Why is the tiny bit of practice better than a massive study session?
It's because of how the brain consolidates memory. Studies on the forgetting curve show that 10 minutes of daily practice is vastly more effective for long-term retention than grinding for 2 hours once a week.
Really? Just 10 minutes?
Yeah, because when you study for 2 hours on a Sunday, you are overloading your short-term memory capacity. The brain can only move so much information from short-term to long-term storage during a sleep cycle, so a lot of that 2-hour session is just wasted.
Oh, wow. So you're doing all that work for nothing.
Basically. Furthermore, if you do nothing until the next Sunday, you are signaling to your brain that this information isn't regularly needed. By Wednesday, the brain starts letting the underbrush grow back.
So a massive binge study session actually triggers the archiving process because of the long gap that follows it.
Exactly. But when you expose your brain to the language for just 10 minutes every single day, you are sending a constant low-level signal to your synapses. You are telling your brain, hey, we use this every 24 hours. This pathway is necessary for our daily environment. Keep the trail clear.
That makes so much sense. You are manipulating your biology to prioritize the language.
You're hacking the system.
I know this is true because I experienced the shift myself with learning English. For the longest time, it felt like heavy lifting. It was exhausting.
Oh, I'm sure.
I would hear an English sentence explicitly translated into my native language in my head, formulate my response, translate that back into English, and then speak. It felt like doing complex math.
You were relying entirely on declarative memory, explicit conscious recall.
Yes. But then I stopped doing those massive, exhausting grammar drills on weekends. I just started exposing myself to it a little bit every single day. A podcast on my commute, a short YouTube video, reading a few pages of a paperback.
Just little bite-sized pieces.
Exactly. And I warmly remember the exact moment the shift happened. I was listening to someone tell a story, and I just laughed at the punchline. I didn't translate the setup. I didn't analyze the grammar. I just understood it.
That's amazing.
It stopped feeling like a foreign code I had to actively decipher, and it just started feeling like thinking.
That is the holy grail of language learning right there. That is the transition from declarative memory, knowing about the language, to procedural memory, which is knowing how to use it automatically, like riding a bike.
It's the best feeling.
And that magic moment, that biological transition, only happens through consistent, low-stakes, daily exposure.
It changes everything.
Yeah.
And I want to take a second here to talk directly to you listening to us right now. Because if you are learning English or trying to maintain it, and you ever feel like you are hitting a wall, if you feel like you are forgetting words, you spent hours memorizing, I want you to remember what archived actually means for you.
It's so important to remember.
Your English is not lost. It is simply waiting. Every single vocabulary word you've ever memorized, every strange idiom you've ever practiced, it is still physically mapped in your brain.
The neural pathways are there. The Ebbinghaus savings paradigm guarantees it.
Exactly. So the goal of your daily practice isn't to achieve flawless perfection. The goal is simply not forgetting. It's just about keeping the door to the archive room propped open. Stop treating language learning like a marathon that you have to sprint. Treat it like watering a houseplant.
I love that.
You don't pour 10 gallons of water on a fern once a month and expect it to survive. A little bit of water every single day keeps it green.
Or to bring it back to the neurology, a little bit of walking every day keeps the trail through the forest completely clear of weeds.
So we want to turn this warm realization into some immediate action for you.
Hmm.
Because understanding the neuroscience is fascinating, but applying it to your own life is where the magic actually happens.
Yeah.
We challenge you to put consistency beats intensity into practice this week.
Just 10 minutes.
Just 10 minutes of English every single day.
Mm.
Not an hour, not a grueling grammar test that spikes your cortisol.
Yeah.
Just 10 minutes, listen to a song, read a short article, or just hang out and listen to us talk about our friends.
Sounds pretty easy to me.
Right. And if this show is part of your 10 minutes, if hearing about Marcus accidentally translating French pop songs, Lily conquering her German spreadsheets, Dan acting like a supercomputer, and Maya's dramatic Italian romance helps you stay consistent with real conversations and real English every day, then hit subscribe. Because we want to be here every week, and we need you to tell us to keep going.
And speaking of the friend group, you will definitely want to be here on Monday.
Oh, no.
Dan did something completely out of character. I mean, nobody saw it coming. We don't even think Dan saw it coming Monday.
I am still reeling from that. You really do not want to miss Monday. But before we go, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder as you go about the rest of your day.
All right, let's hear it.
If the neuroscience is right, and every language we've ever studied is permanently archived in our brains, just waiting for the right emotional trigger or the right song to wake it up, what other hidden skills or forgotten passions or old knowledge from your past are just sitting in your mental attic right now, waiting for you to dust them off? We'll see you next time.